My name is Brady Clayton. I'm 21 years old and I'm a senior at Texas A&M University. Don't let any of this throw you off. I actually just used my old high school prom tux because I've had to get creative with the video. I'm actually just a broke 21-year-old. This is the only nice thing I own. Today I'm going to show you and tell you what I have learned throughout my degree program here at Texas A&M Commerce. Point number one. I'm going to reflect on my leadership ability before I enrolled in the organizational leadership degree format. In 2014, at the age of only 19 years old, I became involved with an organization called Teen Pact Leadership Schools. I traveled all over America teaching teens about politics and government in their local state capitals. And I was a program director, which meant that I had a full staff team full of individuals who had traveled all over America to work with me alone. I even had adults working for me. I was responsible for schedules, registration, running all class logistics, and teaching the material itself, leading classes at sometime up to 100 people in capacity. At 19 years old, that was pretty daunting. I had no idea what I was doing, and while I was trained well, most of my experience with organizational leadership honestly came simply by personal trial and error. I had no form of academic structure that allowed me to put a method to leadership. Sure, I kind of knew what I was doing simply by falling and getting back up again, and from the school of hard knocks, but rarely did I know how I could apply certain methodology to a certain amount of leadership. To sum all of that up, the leadership capacity that I had before I enrolled in the organizational leadership degree was simply the school of hard knocks. That leads me to my second point. What key areas of leadership did I glean from the organizational leadership degree? The course Issues in Organizational Leadership taught me the basic fundamentals when it comes to the definition of how leadership can be applied, in what certain contexts are appropriate for its application, and certain characteristics and behaviors that leaders exhibit. I remember reading a New York Times best-selling book, Team of Rivals, by well-known author Doris Kearns Goodwin, and it chronicles the life of Abraham Lincoln. It made a huge impact on my perception of leadership because Abraham Lincoln, when he was elected president, surrounded himself by all of the people who were his rivals. They ran against him, they hated him politically, and they did everything they could to take down his political career. But he saw the value that they truly possessed as a person and instead used him to surround himself with them in his cabinet. Hence the title, Team of Rivals. Obviously, Abraham Lincoln's presidency has gone down as one of the most famous in American history. Issues in Organizational Leadership just continued to remind me of those principles, that when a leader knows the definition of leadership and the certain context is appropriate for using that form of leadership, he can be an effective leader. Data-driven decision-making. Now this was an interesting class because I'm not a very detail-oriented person. Like I said, in 2011, I was simply traveling all over America teaching teens about politics and government and putting on classes, only using my own form of experience. Any knowledge that I gained on the road was all that I had at my disposal. Data-driven decision-making, on the other hand, suddenly put a leadership form into a method. It broke it down into a statistical form that I could implement in my own life. Instead of looking at the broad brush theory of leadership, it instead broke it down into the statistics, the economics. It gave me projects in which I had to input certain variables and then test them, weigh the balances of those certain variables, and then having abstracted that data to make a decision off of it. Now, when I was traveling all over teaching teens at certain classes, I didn't have these forms of inputs that I could create something, weigh different variables, and then as a result use that to make a decision. I had to just use my own intuition and instinct to make a split-second decision that in some cases affected several hundred people. Had I known about data-driven decision-making, I would have been able to take abstract forms of data and use them to my benefit to eventually result in a great situation. The course Behavior, Ethics, and Leadership was fascinating. I absolutely loved the Ford Pinto case the most. This course gave me the opportunity to analyze certain past leaders' decisions from an ethical and moral perspective, and to see if they were found wanting. Behavior, Ethics, and Leadership really showed me why leadership should be selfless, in that those who are in high managerial positions should instead cater to the needs of those below them, not their own needs. This was one of the huge downfalls of the Ford Pinto case, in which Ford executives thought that their own needs were a bigger priority than those of the general public. Behavior ethics and leaderships truly showed me how the needs of others should be at the forefront of any leader's mind. If the needs of the consumer are placed at the forefront of a manager's mind, hopefully he won't find himself in an ethically compromising position. The leadership theory class was fascinating because there were two parts. First was the SWOT analysis, and the second part of the class was the process implementation plan. The SWOT analysis was a savior to my non-detail-oriented personality. It's easy when you're in an organization to never really put your head above the water and check out all of the strengths and weaknesses of a particular organization. The SWOT analysis really allowed me to look at an organization from a bird's eye view, assessing objectively the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that that organization was faced with. Of anything, the SWOT analysis allowed my non-detailed personality to take a break and allow myself to really dig into the details of a particular organization and its internal mechanics and functions. And then instead take that information and use that as a process of betterment and improvement for the organization as a whole. Now, Leadership Theory 2 gave me the opportunity to write a process implementation plan. This allowed me to formulate a plan and then give a detailed step-by-step analysis of how I would accomplish that plan. It allowed me to set up metrics to measure certain areas of progress. In essence, Leadership Theory 2 literally left no stone unturned, as it forced my generally non-detailed oriented personality to really break down the nitty-gritty of certain process configurations. I learned so much from that class because I was able to really look below the surface of an organization, not only from the SWOT analysis perspective, but also to formulate a plan and then give extremely detailed steps to how that plan would eventually be accomplished. Had I known that kind of format existed when I was 19 traveling America, teaching hundreds and thousands of people, I honestly would have made much better decisions and would have executed far better thought through plans. Leadership Theory 2 gave me the opportunity to create a process improvement plan in which I was able to set out a strategy of improvement for a certain organization and then set out detailed steps in how I would go about accomplishing that. The class Leading Change gave me the opportunity to create a change management plan in which I would outline a particular strategy change for a certain organization and then list out the certain steps necessary to accomplish that change strategy. As a non-detail oriented person, Leading Change, honestly, I wish it had saved my past, because it allowed me to implement certain changes by giving me and presenting me a format in which I was able to list certain steps on what I wanted to change specifically, and then use certain areas to measure that change. The class Leading Change gave me a game plan in my implementation of a change. It gave me a strategy, it allowed me to see certain processes through various kinds of filters, and then finally it allowed me to present that strategy in a well thought through manner. Honestly, if I had learned Leading Change 3 years ago, I would have been so much further along in my process of leadership as a person. Finally, Capstone 1 and 2 has allowed me to reflect on my time at TAMUC Online and allowed me to really take inventory of the certain details that I've learned over my time here at Texas A&M. Capstone 1 allowed me to analyze an oil and gas exploration company that has been surrounded by so many different factors in the economy today. It was my first real-world taste of how a particular company operates in the real-world environment, and then having direct access to the president of that company as he was willing to be interviewed by me and for me to ask him certain factors that affected his company's well-being. The leadership interviews were also extremely insightful to see the certain similarities that while leaders who may have different personalities also have commonalities when it comes to their execution of their leadership. Finally, the video presentation has probably been one of the funnest things that I've been able to create because it's allowed me to get creative. Honestly, my time here at Texas A&M has been one of the most cultivating, learning, and growing and enriching experiences of the past couple years of my life. I've learned so much in how to methodize the area of leadership, to truly implement certain strategies and certain formats that Otherwise, in years past, I honestly would have just taken from instinct and intuition. Instead, this degree format allowed me to see leadership through totally different lens. It allowed me to approach leadership from a very methodical, well-paced, and organized view. Point 3. How do I describe myself as a leader right now? Honestly, I would consider myself far more aware when it comes to leadership than I did 3 years ago when I was only 19 years old. I've been able to be educated and taught on a variety of subjects dealing with the intricacies of how leadership should be executed, under what appropriate context should it be performed, etc. I'm honestly super excited because I've been able to be educated on a variety of issues through TAMUC Online and learned so much more about leadership than I ever knew when I was only 19 years old. As a leader right now, I would consider myself extremely excited because I can see in the next couple of months I will have a job that will allow me to be in a leadership position. Whether that's interpersonal influence or position influence, I'll be able to use what I've learned through TAMUC and implement that into the job that I'll be getting in a couple of months. Point 4. As all college grads, the future is a little bit unforeseen, as I'm sure yours was when you graduated college as well. But that doesn't mean that you still can't be able to take the education that you've gleaned through your successful and profitable years in college and implement those into a future that you know you're going to partake in. The important thing at the end of the day is that I have an education that I can draw back on when I'm going to be placed into leadership positions. I've already been placed into leadership positions in the past, and I know that I will be in the future, potentially within the next couple of months, depending on the job that I'm about to get. Once I arrive at that threshold of a job, I know that I'm going to be able to use and implement the education that I've gleaned here from TAMUC and really enact that in the real world, and that's what I'm excited about. My name is Brady Clayton, I'm 21 years old, and I'm graduating from Texas A&M University Online on May 14th. Thanks, guys!